Hello there, everyone. I'm Gaylen Morse, and welcome to Journey to Recovery. It's great having you along today. Our podcast today is big news for us. We're launching a new book called Destinations. We can't wait to tell you all about it. On today's program, we'll talk with Dr. Hal Baumchen about the background and purpose of this project, and we'll take a sneak peek at some of the lessons and chapters inside. Thanks for joining us today. Our podcast focuses on the co-occurring disorders of mental health and substance abuse. We present a wide range of thought-provoking, hopeful, and positive topics from a clinical yet practical perspective. And we provide a solid, truly integrated co-occurring disorder resource you can use in your treatment program or in your own recovery. Our host is Dr. Hal Baumchen, a licensed clinical psychologist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. He's the executive director of Northland Counseling Services and the clinical director of North Star Regional Co-occurring Disorder Treatment Programs. He's an author, speaker, and clinician with over 30 years of counseling experience. I'm here today with Tim Bode, Operations Director at Northland Counseling Services, and with Dr. Hal Baumchen, our host at Journey to Recovery. Hey there, Tim.
Hello, Gaylen. Hello, Dr. Hal.
Hey, Tim.
As Gaylen said, I'm Tim Bode. I'm the Director of Operations at Northland Counseling Services, and I wanted to take just a moment to explain a few things about Northland Counseling and what we're doing there. Northland Counseling Services, where Dr. Baumchen is the Executive Director, provides mental health services in both individual and group settings, and also offers a co-occurring disorder treatment program called Lighthouse that's located at our Maple Grove office. And Dr. Baumchen also provides services at North Star Regional Co-occurring Disorder Treatment Programs and here at Journey to Recovery. You're certainly a busy man, aren't you, Dr. Hal?
That would be no exaggeration, Tim. Northland Counseling has grown over the years, and we've added these other programs that you referred to as well.
You know, Dr. Hal, how long ago did you start Northland Counseling Services?
It was April 1st, 2002, so we just celebrated 15 years, and I'm very proud of that. We've made good progress since then.
Dr. Hal, tell us in a nutshell what Northland Counseling does.
Northland Counseling provides psychological services for adults, adolescents, and children. We specialize in treating anxiety, depression, marital concerns, and parenting problems of all types.
I know that you have the Bridges program. Can you explain what that is?
Right. So Gaylen does voice, what do you call that, Gaylen?
Message on hold.
Yeah, message on hold. And you mentioned the Bridges program very eloquently, and it's a nice script. And so if you get placed on hold, you hear Gaylen talking to you, giving you some information. And he mentions the Bridges program. And Bridges is our intensive outpatient treatment program that meets 5 days each week, Monday through Friday, 9 in the morning until noon. So a very intensive program. Most patients are there 20 to 30 actual treatment days, so that takes 4 to 6 weeks. And they're there trying to prevent hospitalization or maybe get referred by the hospital when they're coming out of the hospital. So good, solid treatment gets done in a program like that. It helps people who are depressed or have bipolar illness in a manic episode or very anxious or stressed out and burned out. So that's a very good program.
How many counselors are on your team? And of course, how many locations do you have? How many office personnel?
Yeah, lots of questions there. So we have 30 counselors on staff, about 10 or 15 administrative personnel. We have 3 locations, Chaska, Chanhassen, and Maple Grove, Minnesota. And we've been growing over the years. We always try to add staff. I think you were hiring or interviewing somebody on Friday. I never heard how that came out.
Yes, so we were interviewing someone for a part-time front desk position and had a very good candidate.
In one of the offices.
Correct, in our Chaska office. And so I always like to tell people that when we hire staff and do interviews, I tell people that our goal at Northland Counseling is to treat everyone who comes to us with care and compassion and kindness. And so we're looking always for people who have that compassion as part of their character and their personality.
The counselors and the administrative staff and everybody in between that helps out.
Right. Dr. Hal, you and Gaylen have known each other a long time, haven't you? How long have you known each other or worked together?
Gaylen and I go way back, don't we?
I've been with Dr. Hal since the very beginning of Northland. In fact, I think we were good friends a long time before that. We met at church. We even did some skits and dramas together.
Tell me about that one you were explaining to me before we started.
We did a skit, I believe it was like kind of like the Passion of the Christ. It was about the crucifixion, but we did it in a very unusual way. And one of the things was I was dressed in this black pants, black sweater, and I came out and talked directly to the audience, which you don't often do in a play. While I was talking, I had this little puzzle. It's a pair of horseshoes, a couple pieces of chain, and you have to try and get this
Ring off.
little ring. There you go, get the ring off. And it's actually fairly easy to do. But while I'm sitting there trying to remember my lines, talk to the audience, in the back of my head is going, are you going to get it off this time? But we've done lots of things together over many years.
Some of those things I can't believe that I've forgotten, and some of those things I'm so glad I've forgotten.
And as you mentioned, Dr. Hal, Gaylen has done the message on hold for us for all of our offices. So
Right, yeah. So
great to have.
when I get put on hold calling my own office, I often get to hear Gaylen's voice. So
It's even more startling when I call your office and get to hear my voice on there.
So, Dr. Hal, tell us about what's happening with Journey to Recovery.
Well, Tim, as you know, Journey to Recovery is our publishing and education arm of all that we're doing. And we have this podcast and the video podcast that we're working on right now. And most weeks I write a blog that's available on the website. And we have other resources available through the journeytorecovery.com website as well.
And those resources are available either in chapter or lesson form, or you can right now get the whole Journey's manual there. The resources are specifically designed for a counselor to use in a treatment center, but are also very helpful for clients and family members. And they're written in an easy-to-understand way and present useful and practical information to help you or your clients in your recovery.
And all of those lessons, as you know, are trying to address co-occurring disorder problems, so mental health and substance abuse. So we write the lessons to address those problems. And we tackle those same things that we talk about here: anxiety, depression, staying motivated, setting reasonable expectations, and various ways to boost your mood. We take those topics on here at the podcast, and we also have those articles printed for download at the website.
Some of those lessons are available for a small fee, while others are available free of charge. So we invite our listeners to visit the website, scroll through that list of 60, 70 or more lessons that are posted at journeytorecovery.com.
You know, many of those lessons come from the Journey Manual that we talk about here on the podcast. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. We've had over 10,000 of those lessons that we've given away through the website. So keep up the good work, everybody. And I'm happy that we're able to get this information communicated to a wide variety of people, including folks in other treatment programs across the country. That's really cool. And that keeps working. So I'm glad for that.
And in addition to material from the Journey's manual, we've also been adding some lessons from the new Destinations book. So, Hal, let's talk about that a little bit, about that newest book.
So the whole Destinations book is now just being released, but we've actually used parts of it as we were writing and developing it. And now for the first time, the whole thing is available online, so you can check that out. But Tim, as you know, we use the Journeys book in the co-occurring disorder treatment program, and I use that in the residential program. And so those guys get this material from the Journeys book for 30 days, and then they move to a step-down program. And I wanted different material for the step-down program. So we had 40 chapters that we used in the first program, the residential treatment program. And I wanted more material, so I wrote another 40 chapters for the Destinations book to be used in the intensive outpatient treatment program as a step-down. So it's very much the same intensity, the same kind of design, just more material.
Right. So let me give just a brief description of the Destinations book for our listeners. Destinations addresses co-occurring disorder topics mostly from a cognitive behavioral therapy perspective, and it's divided into 42 chapters, And these chapters serve as lessons to address the emotional issues that are common in addiction and help people obtain lasting recovery. And we've been working on this for quite a long time. So, Dr. Hal, I'm sure that you're happy that it's done.
Right. And well, of course, I have you to thank for that. You've worked with me. Tim works for us, Gaylen, doing just about anything that I asked him to do. And he has a skill set and experience that makes him just a great book editor, a great designer, a graphics person. And I appreciate, Tim, how you can take my few scratchings and my typing and turn it into something that's beautiful and practical and helpful for people.
Thank you. I'm happy to help out in that way.
You've really spent a lot of time. You and Marta and Shelley have worked hard to take it into this unfinished form, put it into finished form. And Gaylen, you know how this goes. Just right when you think you have something that you're pretty proud of, like somebody has a better idea.
Especially when there's more than one person working on it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to, let's try this.
Yeah, we should
right.
add that.
Right. And I always think it's a good idea, but then, that means like more work to do.
You still have to have an end line, too.
And yeah, Tim has this saying, nothing gets done without a deadline. But so we try to put these deadlines on, and then we don't meet them,
So, as happy as you are that it's done, there are others that are happy that it's done too. So, Dr. Hal, if you had to narrow it down to just one or two things that makes destinations helpful for people in recovery, what would you say those are?
Other than being done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Finished beats perfect. I would say that we designed it in such a way that the lessons, checklists, and worksheets contained in the workbook would be helpful for people overcoming obstacles. So giving them good, solid ways to defeat the temptations and the triggers that lead to relapse, giving them good, helpful information to help somebody with a co-occurring disorder, or depression, or anxiety, or bipolar illness. So those checklists and process questions help people work through the material.
So talk a little bit more about that. Why all the checklists and questions? Why are those important?
Well, co-occurring disorders is super complex. And to be effective, treatment programs and interventions must specifically target and treat both substance use and mental health disorders at the same time. However, chronic drug and alcohol use and the depression and anxiety seem to make things worse for people in terms of the way they're able to think through things. Not that they're stupid, I don't mean that, but there's some cognitive damage or neurological damage or cognitive impairment that occurs when you use drugs and alcohol long term or when you have depression. However, we're trying to get people to change their lives by changing the way they think, but they don't think as well. So we had to come up with a way to help them process the material. So I designed a lot of checklists and process questions. We would make it easy for them to take a look at the material, to select things that would apply to them, and then process it after that. So the reason we made all the checklists and questions is to help people who have some trouble thinking things through process this material more thoroughly and more easily.
So to kind of summarize that, because co-occurring disorders are complex, you tried to make the material more simple. Is that right?
You would not guess that from what I just tried to explain, but that's absolutely right. So we tried to make complex things not more complicated, but in fact less complicated and more simple.
I know, Dr. Hal, in your writings that you also try to be practical and down to earth.
Right, that came from the farm, trying to be practical, what works and how are you going to make it work and that sort of thing. So I think I've carried that over into my professional career as well. For the past 30 years, I've been writing client resources and using them in our counseling clinic, in various treatment programs and residential treatment for mental health and substance abuse. My clients have appreciated that I can speak their language, understand their struggles, and give practical solutions that are both hope-filled and inspirational.
I know that also through your work, you try to be positive and inspirational, and that never seems too hard for you.
No, it's not difficult for me, but I do try to make an effort to write things in a positive way. Rather than to tell somebody not to do something, I try to tell them what they can do. And that actually came from my wife, who was probably like, don't always tell me what not to do. Can you, help me out here? So, and I like that too for myself. Tell me what to do. Tell me that I'm doing it right, and I'll likely do more of it. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and it shuts me down. And I think our clients are like that too. So we tried to write it in such a way that it would be inspiring and positive.
Right. And I've noticed another distinctive thing about your work, which is that you often talk about character development and not just behavior changes. So you're not just focused on quitting drinking or stopping the use of drugs.
Right. So instead of stop that therapy, drinking's hurting me, well, stop that. Instead of just doing that, we tried to help people become the kind of person that could deliver those actions and behaviors. So what do you need to change inside that will help you get the end result that you're looking for, which is to get that life of recovery that you're hoping for. And I've noticed that those who obtained lasting recovery had certain qualities in common. Not only did they have similarly desired sobriety behaviors such as abstinence from drugs or trying to stay out of jail or attending a meeting, but they also worked to develop those key character traits that made those new behaviors possible.
So in your writing, you frequently mention those character traits.
There are numerous chapters, both in Journeys and in the new book, Destinations, that mention character traits and character development. And I wrote one chapter in Destinations, which includes a poster called The 10 Essential Traits of Recovery. And cultivating those 10 essential character traits helps people strengthen their resolve, increase positive momentum, and establish that life of recovery that they're looking for.
And we talked about those 10 essential traits, I think, in a previous podcast. But can you just review some of them?
Right. We had that poster. You remember that? We brought that in and we talked that through with those 10 essential traits. And one of them was to stay honest. Another one was to stay grateful, which means to remain humble, and accepting. And then stay positive, which I think we just talked about a second ago, meaning try to keep a positive, upbeat, and optimistic attitude. Another character trait we mentioned is to stay determined, meaning look for the primary reason that you're trying to recover and keep that first and foremost in your mind. Like, hey, I'm trying to raise my own kids, or I want to get married again someday, or I want my mom and dad to be proud of me, or I'm trying to stay out of prison. Whatever your goal is, keep that first and foremost in your mind and use that as a chief motivator. Those character traits help people establish a recovery and get those end results that they're looking for, those behavior changes and better outcomes in their lives.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me like Destinations has been a helpful resource already.
Now, you've been through it a number of times as editor, and you've spoken to the other production people on our staff. What do you think of it?
Well, it's interesting as we've read through and proofread the book. I think it's not been uncommon for those of us working on it to say to each other how we can see the material in the book being helpful in our own lives.
Right.
And so if we think it can be beneficial for us, we're confident and we know that it can help others too.
When my wife has read through it, then she sort of reads it with somebody else in mind, like, oh, this would be really good for, a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of a joke. So if you got a second, I'm going to tell you the joke. A man goes to the dentist and he says, how much would it be to pull a tooth? And the dentist says, it's $750. To pull one tooth, the man says, wow, that's a lot. Is there any way, sir, you could do it for less? The dentist says, well, I could have my associate here do it for $500. Oh, that's a better price. That's great. But is there any way you could do it for less? Yes, I think I could have my associate do it without any anesthesia or Novocaine, and he could do it for $100. Oh, sir, that's a better price. But is there any way you could possibly do it for less? Now the dentist is getting kind of frustrated. I could have my assistant, my receptionist, do it out in the lobby with no anesthesia, no Novocaine, with a rusty pair of pliers, and she could do it for $35. The man says, oh, that's a terrific price. I'd like to make an appointment for my wife. So everybody wants a good deal for somebody else. People often read this material for somebody else. Oh, this would really help somebody else. But like you said, Tim, we can read this material. It's helpful for me. So that's what we're hoping for when our clients read it, when treatment professionals read it, like, wow, this will be helpful for me and for the people I serve.
Right. And another thing that I noticed about you, Dr. Hal, is that you try to be respectful to people no matter where they are in their recovery program.
Right. Instead of getting mad at somebody because they're not getting this material or they're not recovering fast enough or they slipped again or they had a relapse, I try not to get mad at people. We're trying to be kind and compassionate, like you said earlier. And I do understand that people have ups and downs in their recovery. People start out with a great deal of motivation, and then they lose some of that energy over time. Relapse can be common and difficult to face, both for family members and for professionals, and then certainly for the person themselves. For the person struggling with a substance use disorder, it can really be disheartening to slip again. But we don't want to get mad at them. We're just trying to help them.
I'm sure people will be encouraged and inspired as they read through the materials. And I'm confident that other treatment centers will be able to use this material in their programs as well.
And that's what we're hoping for. So thank you, everybody, and thanks for working on this project with me. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening to today's podcast. We've been talking today about Dr. Hal Baumchen's new book called Destinations. We hope it can be a valuable resource for you or your colleagues in a treatment program. We invite you to check it out at journeytorecovery.com. You'll be able to look through a chapter list and review some of the lessons. And also on the website, you can download other materials that help you develop skills to identify emotional problems, reduce symptoms, and prevent relapse. Check us out at journeytorecovery.com. We've been visiting today with author, speaker, and clinical psychologist Dr. Hal Baumchen. I'm Gaylen Morse. Thanks for listening to today's program. We'll see you next time on Journey to Recovery. Remember, recovery is a journey. Enjoy the ride.